Jimmy Butler is your Eastern Conference Player of the Week. We'll talk about Max Strus's injury, and then we'll talk about the Miami Mashup jerseys that have just been introduced by the team. You're listening to Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. I'm David Ramil, the host of Locked On Heat, the longest running podcast covering your Miami Heat. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Remember that every episode is always free and available wherever you get the show, so make sure you subscribe and follow to get the best coverage available. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. This is your second official day back on the podcast. Wes, how was your first day? What was the reception like from everybody out there?
Pretty incredible. Really appreciate everybody just coming out, supporting us, getting back together and doing this show. And one thing I do want to say, I don't think I got a chance to say it on our first episode on Monday, but this isn't going to be the same Locked On Heat that you and I were doing 3-4 years ago, right? I think the Locked On Podcast Network has evolved while you and I have been a part of it. I've, of course, been doing it over at Locked On Warriors for the last couple of years, but this is more than just a podcast. Right now, it's a YouTube channel. It's in some ways a TV show. It is daily, as it always was, but we have national sponsorships. And we have all these great things too. And you know, I think you and I have a lot of really good ideas that we're going to bring here. And so again, I really appreciate you coming on. But I do think that you owe our new YouTube listeners some sort of explanation about why you are a still image right now. I know that there's some construction going on and things like that in your life, but this is not by accident. It's not like you are frozen right now.
No, that would be weird. I just look right now. I am stuck in between houses, kind of waiting for
but
a
not
new
homeless.
House. No, not homeless. That would be even
that
weirder.
Sounds a little bit like you're homeless.
Okay, all right. Not stuck. Okay, yeah. I guess when
it's
you
like
say
being stuck in between jobs. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. I see how the optics are of that. Well, optic sound. No, that doesn't make sense either. In any case, the reality is that I just can't record right now, and in a living situation that's somewhat in turmoil. Just subjecting our viewers now, not just listeners, but our viewers to me on a regular basis is punishment enough. But to see all the kind of chaos going around me is not necessary either. But you know what? We'll correct that soon.
I imagine you recording, just giving great analysis on the Miami Heat in the middle of like a construction site with like cranes and people like hammering nails and things like that. That's basically what you're doing.
I've got a soundproof porta potty that I record from. It's perfect. I carved out a little hole so I can kind of see what's going on around me. But overall, I think it's convenient, works really well. And again, it gives me some free time, a little personal space so that I can knock out the top quality coverage and analysis that everybody's so used to. But, somebody who's not living under any kind of construction, nice segue there, Jimmy Butler, the Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Just yesterday, we talked about Jimmy emerging as a possible MVP candidate, and lo and behold, he gets the kind of recognition nationally that you and I debated whether or not it was even possible. He averaged 28 points, 8 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 3.25 steals, shot almost 59% from the floor, 40% from three-point range, and 93.3% from the free throw line. That was just unbelievable. And of course, moreover, Miami finished with a 4-0 record during that stretch too. So a pretty phenomenal week for Jimmy overall, and certainly deserving there. I don't even know who else was in consideration. I didn't really read that. It always includes that little blurb at the end of the press release there, but I didn't care. Jimmy deserves it, and I think he was absolutely phenomenal. Your thoughts on his Eastern Conference Player of the Week award?
Yeah, so Eastern Conference Player of the Week, Western Conference Player of the Week, these Player of the Week awards, I really don't care about them. There's just not a thing that, like, at the end of a player's career, when you're, splitting hairs about who was better all time, it's not like, well, this guy had like 23 Player of the Week awards, and this guy only had like 21.
It's got its own category on Basketball Reference, how many Player of the Week awards.
It's a done, and you know what? It just takes up space. I really don't care about it. Steph won Western Conference Player of the Week during the first week of the season when I was still doing the Locked On Warriors show. A lot of Warriors fans wanted to make a big deal out of that, and I was like, I don't think Steph has played all that well. I don't know why. I don't really care that he won it. I kind of want him to shoot better. You know what I mean?
Right.
And in this instance, Jimmy Butler has played really well, and so that's not really the case here. But that's what's important, is that he is playing well. If he wins Eastern Conference Player of the Week, that's great. It does sort of tie into our conversation that we had on Monday about some of the
Yes.
lack of national attention given
Yep.
to the Heat's start here. But basically, we recorded that on a Sunday night. I wake up on Monday morning. NBA.com has got the Miami Heat ranked number 1 in their power rankings. ESPN has them, I think, number 2. I think The Athletic also has them at number 2.
Yep.
So they're starting to get some shine from the articles, the posts, the blogs, all that kind of stuff. Still waiting for ESPN to give a single segment to them at some point. But as we, right before we started recording, BetOnline came out with their updated odds. The Heat have gone from, I think it was 25-1 odds to win the championship, to make the finals, to 12-1. 6th best odds in the NBA right now. So people are starting to catch up, and Jimmy Butler winning Eastern Conference Player of the Week is just another example of that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that this is only the second time during his Heat tenure that he's won it. I mean, so many
Hmm.
phenomenal stretches, so many great games from him during the past 3 seasons. Even last year, when he came back from missing time due to COVID-19, he came back as an MVP candidate. That was when the first kind of sounds about Jim VP started emerging from Heat Twitter. I think he was certainly deserving then of that kind of recognition. He emerged as a top 5 player. His first season in Miami, while he didn't put up monstrous numbers, it was clear that he was the leader of this team, that he established a hierarchy where there was none before. And this past week, I think, is just a whole other level as far as his performance is concerned. Again, I talked about this yesterday. I think that there are issues that voters could look at and say, you know what, with the addition of Kyle Lowry, how important is Jimmy actually in terms of winning and losing? Bam Adebayo certainly provides an incredible impact on defense and on offense, and so maybe that lightens the load for Jimmy. But all of this
Yeah,
is
I don't know.
ridiculous.
You said that yesterday. It was a good point, but I thought about it a little bit more. And don't the Heat still have like? I mean, it's weird because really the only homegrown guys on this roster are Bam, Tyler Hero, and Haslam.
Sure.
But they still have like this feel of being almost like a homegrown team, and I think that's because all these pieces were sort of layered in different phases, right? Like you make the sign and trade for Jimmy Butler. 2 years later, you make that sign and trade for Kyle Lowry. Bam Adebayo blossoms. Tyler Hero becomes a thing as a rookie, and is now part of the rotation. And then you dig up guys like Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, we'll talk about here in a little bit, and all these other guys. You kind of get a guy like Dwayne Dedman off the unwanted pile of free agency and stuff like that. But it's not really homegrown, and yet it still
Mhm.
feels a little homegrown. And because of
Mhm.
that, I think that it's not going to be a situation like when LeBron first got to Miami and didn't win MVP because Derrick Rose got it instead because there was like a homegrown narrative going on with him and the Chicago Bulls that year.
Sure.
I don't think that narrative is going to work counter to this Heat team, but I could be wrong.
I think a lot of national guys still think of Jimmy as kind of a selfish asshole, to be honest with you. I think
Yeah.
he's got that reputation from his days in Minnesota. There's
You think
the
the MVP
relationship.
voters think that way?
I do. I really
Yeah, like the
do.
old school ones? Yeah.
Maybe not even so old school. I remember talking to Ben Golliver last year about this, and just his view of Jimmy, how he kind of burned his bridges on his way out and things of that sort. I think that's left kind of a bad taste in a lot of voters' mouths about the way he does things.
Well, you and
And
I can work on Ben, that's fine.
that's yeah, no doubt. But I mean, everybody else. So I think there's this view that a lot of his actions and his internet presence and everything else is
Yeah.
kind of performative, like the 3 o'clock practice session when he first joined the team, even overly dribbling or loudly dribbling in the Orlando bubble, those
I
kinds
mean,
of
it
things.
was. That was performative, but there
Was
was
it?
also a point. Well, it's performative for the people around him, I suppose, and so in a way it is, but it had a point to it. It wasn't just, "Hey, let me just show you how good I am at karaoke just for the hell of it." It was like, "No, I'm gonna show you how early I'm getting in so that you feel a little bit of peer pressure. So to work as hard or work as early as I do." I don't really care if he wakes up at 3 a.m. That to me, like, you could work just as hard as 3 a.m.
Sure.
as you do at 8 a.m. I really don't care.
Right.
But some of it was a little performative. But that's fine, And I think that if the Heat start winning and you compare that group and those players to the mess that's happening in Brooklyn, to the mess that's happening in Philadelphia, maybe still a little bit of fatigue from Milwaukee.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't know. I'm just I think you're absolutely right. There's parts of it. Maybe I'm a little bit more skeptical about how much that will continue to play a factor going forward. And obviously, look, player of the week stuff isn't by voters. You just kind of look like, okay, who averaged the most points per game and had like nice counting stats for a week. Let's give it to
Mhm.
that player. It's really not a difficult process. But when player of the month comes along, And if the Heat are still playing well and Jimmy Butler is still playing this way, then he could have a say at Player of the Month. And that is when you really start to have a conversation about like all NBA and MVP and stuff like that. We should mention, by the way, Bam Adebayo getting some votes for Player of the Week too. I thought that was earned.
Yeah, deserved. I mean, that's part of the problem there as far as potential votes being taken away from Jimmy and stuff like that. But look, this is all ridiculous. The narratives have to start building, and you're absolutely right about the Player of the Month helping to kind of add to that whole story. It has to be a good story, and the one thing that really adds to it more than anything else, winning. Like, if this team is able to establish themselves as one of the tops in the Eastern Conference, surpassing either a Brooklyn or a Milwaukee, I think that certainly helps Jimmy's case, and it certainly helps all the other players on this roster in terms of award recognition and things of that sort. But you know what? We'll talk a little bit about one of the team's greatest strengths, which had been one of the team's greatest question marks going into the season. But right now, I want to talk to you about prize picks, excuse me. NBA fanatics, if you've heard about prize picks, it's a daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know you will too. Prize picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. Prize picks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. All of your users that deposit and use your promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match of up to $100. Just be sure to use the promo code NBA. You can pick 2 to 5 players and an over/under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, just a minute of your day. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check it out. Check out prizepicks.com and use the promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy.
All right, back here with Locked On Heat. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. All right, so here's the deal. We saw the Max Strus injury Saturday night against Memphis, David, and it didn't look good in the moment. Max Strus obviously comes with his share of injury history toward his ACL a couple of years ago, and that was his fear, right? Talking with reporters in Dallas today about the fact that he might have suffered something as catastrophic. But it turns out it's not. He is out with now a sprained left knee, a sprain, not a tear, not an ACL, nothing like that. So good news. Max Strus talked about how relieved he was about the fact that it wasn't something as serious as an ACL, that it's just a sprained left knee. That said, he is still expected to be out for at least a couple of weeks now, which is a substantial amount of time. And the Miami Heat, they've gotten this far in part because their starting lineup is so good, but also because the depth has become somewhat of an advantage for them early on. But Max Strus was a big part of that. He was sort of your backup Duncan Robinson, a guy who, when Duncan Robinson was struggling, can come in, hit some threes on all these things, and was, kind of one of these guys who you and I talked about as one of these players who can make a mini leap this year and become a real factor in a night-to-night rotation. But he's going to be out of that rotation now for quite a while. So where does this leave Miami going forward?
In a tough spot, honestly, because even on Friday's game when Duncan was struggling from the floor, on Friday's game, because on Saturday Duncan actually wound up shooting 5 of 10 from the 3-point line. But on Friday, Duncan looked a little lost. People were kind of griping already. There were some big numbers, even while Miami was in the midst of a blowout there, and it seemed pretty obvious that at least Max could provide some aspect of what Duncan was doing out there. And then he went in there. He did. He provided some energy, hit a couple of shots when Duncan had not been able to up to that point. And I think it does put Miami in a tough spot because you don't want to. It seems like so much of this is kind of delicate. There's a delicate balance to this roster because you can't suffer any injury to Kyle Lowry. We already saw what happened when he missed one game this season, and then Gabe Vincent was put in the starting lineup, and he did not handle that job particularly well. Not a knock on Gabe. He's not Kyle Lowry. He's not a Hall of Fame point guard. If Jimmy were to miss time for some reason, then all of a sudden, what's your next best option? And that would have been Max. I think he probably would have gotten the starting nod in that case. But now that he's going to be missing a couple of weeks, there aren't a lot of options. The only one that you really have is Caleb. I think he's the only one that you can really continue to play out there. I think he's going to be an option for Miami and for Coach Spo. He looks like he has some promise. I think there's some potential there. Athletically, he seems like he provides a lot of Jimmy-esque qualities. He makes that play. He's willing to, go after that chase down block. He can can challenge on a rebound and things of that sort. He does have some hops. The shooting isn't there. He can't draw fouls to the same degree, although he does he does a pretty good job, all things considered. I think he's just going to get a lot more playing time than I think Eric Spoelstra had expected to. He didn't play at all against his brother Cody Martin in Charlotte on Charlotte against on Friday, and then on Saturday he wound up playing some significant minutes there against the Grizzlies. So I wonder how that's going to change the rotation going forward. The big question I think is also, does this speed up Victor Oladipo's return? Does this put any pressure
No,
on the Miami coaching
I mean,
staff?
it shouldn't. I don't think it should at all. I understand why you would ask that, and it is uh, a worthwhile thing that the Heat should consider. But you, the value of Victor Oladipo this season is a ceiling riser, not a fill-in for Max Strus. You know what I mean? So you got
Yeah,
to make sure he is completely healthy and ready to go for a playoff push, not necessarily for November, December basketball. Like, I don't even care if he doesn't play until next year, right? It doesn't matter to me. He just has to be ready to go when the games really matter, and when you could potentially be eliminated. No, I think you're absolutely. Look, we saw Caleb Martin pick up those minutes when Max Strus got hurt against Memphis. It was Caleb Martin playing those Strus minutes down the stretch. I think that's exactly what Spo is going to do. That's fine early in the season. The one thing that you would have to monitor, depending on how long this goes, because all we know is at least a couple weeks. Like, we don't have an exact timeline here. Caleb Martin's on a two-way contract, right? He's only got 50 games that he could play at the NBA level this season.
right.
So when does that start to become a factor? Again, not something you necessarily have to worry about right now because it's so early in the year and you've got a lot of other things going on. So if you're Eric Spoelstra, if you're Andy Ellisberg, you're not worrying about that. You just say, all right, let's play Caleb whenever we need him, and that's
Right.
fine. There's other, like, you could go KZ Okpala and play a little bit bigger more often. I just don't find that viable. KZ really isn't giving you much anything consistently when he's on the court. Caleb Martin, he's, like you said, high energy player, shooting 33% from 3-point range. So he's not going to replace what you get from Max Strus, but at least as a body, somebody who could play the three for you, back up Jimmy Butler in certain situations. Yeah, that's going to be Caleb Martin's role. What I will say is, if they do start suffering any more injuries and you start to see this depth get hit a little bit more, maybe that's when that 15th roster spot comes into play. You could sign somebody to a non-guaranteed deal and waive them if that buyout player who you want comes available down the line at some other point. Uh, maybe you uh, maybe you consider some sort of trade. I don't know, but those are all questions for future Heat. Like, that's a problem that might arise later on down the road. For now, I think you just have Caleb Martin picking up Max Strus's minutes and then figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Okpala's probably going to get some playing time. There's
Yeah.
just there isn't any other option right now. You can't go to Oladipo. Strus isn't available. That Spo likes to keep a tight rotation. I can already hear somebody suggesting, well, why don't you start Tyler Herro? He's like your best player off the bench. He might be one of your top three players on the roster anyway. Go ahead and put him in the starting lineup. Let Duncan shift up to the three. Let Jimmy play some 4 minutes, etc. Maybe PJ Tucker can come off the bat. No, that's not going to work. Spo's never going to do that. He's never going to change a rotation. He feels comfortable bringing the bench guys off the bench. It's just the way he works. It's always how he's operated. He's rarely made that change. The only time I can think of it, and it worked out particularly well, was in the Orlando bubble when he brought Goran Dragic into the starting lineup, and normally that would not have been the case. So I think these were unusual circumstances. The playoffs are a completely different animal. 7-game series. Obviously, you want to be able to include any wrinkles that you possibly can there. But I just think no, this roster is fairly set, and at this point in time, I don't think there's going to be any changes. You're not going to pick up a player here and there. Can you bring in somebody from the G League and add
Well,
them to
there's
the
Marcus
roster?
Garrett. I
Yeah.
mean, he's on that. Like, you could recall him from Sioux Falls, right? That's an
Yep.
option. Gabe Vincent he used to be a good 3-point shooter, like in college and stuff. He's not anymore. He's not right now, but
I miss
that's
those days.
well, maybe because he's being asked to be Kyle Lowry Jr. Like, maybe if you're Spoelstra, you can play him off the ball a little bit more. Allow Tyler Herro to be sort of that pseudo point guard off your bench. You play, continue to stagger Lowry and Butler as you have, and then maybe you bring in Gabe Vincent. Play like, hey man, just play some good defense, play off the ball a little bit. Maybe on spot up threes, you have a little bit better of a chance. I think there's some other options too that he can go in. But like I said, for now, just let Caleb Martin take the minutes. It's that simple. He's been fine for you as an energy guy. You got enough playmaking, enough shooting. You got other stuff. It's not like Max Strus is good, but it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire. We have
Yeah.
high expectations for him later this season. The one thing you are missing if you're the Heat is that high variance instance, right? Where Max Strus comes off the bench and he's like 6 for 9 from 3-point range or something on a given night and wins you a game. Like Kalen Martin's not doing that. But again, it's not as if they don't have shooters on other places on the roster that can do those kinds of things at some point.
Yeah, no, and I also quickly want to point out, man, the depth of this team has been pretty good. I know you and I talked even before
Yeah.
the season started.
Yeah.
We were looking at preseason games and going, "Oh man, the depth is a little iffy." They've been nice. Like, look, a lot of it is just getting punched in the face by Lowry in that starting lineup. I totally understand that, but you want to be able to bring in guys. Herro, I mean, without saying, he has been phenomenal. Incredible scoring from him, but you're getting incredible minutes from Dedmon. You're getting great play from Markieff Morris. He's really seemed like he's gotten into great shape and understands his role. Even Strus in those minutes, I'm sure Martin will hold his own here. You can't besmirch Miami's depth. Like, if that was a concern for national pundits going into the season, and ourselves included, I don't think it is anymore. So I think a lot of the concerns were overstated. We'll see how it happens. I'll see how it plays out. And yes, there's always the possibility of Victor Oladipo returning and adding even another dimension to an already pretty solid group. But let
Yeah.
me move on. And before we talk a little bit about Miami's new City Edition jerseys, I want to tell all of our listeners and viewers about Shopify. It's a complete commerce platform that lets you start, grow, and manage a business. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their products. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using Shopify POS, our point of sale app, and accompanying hardware. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses. So startups, upstarts, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. I think Big Face Coffee is actually on Shopify, which is pretty interesting. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and Shopify helps you make your entrepreneurial dreams come true. I love how Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed from down the street to around the globe. It powers over 1.7 million businesses, from first sale to full scale, reaching customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba right now. That's shopify.com/lockedonnba. And don't forget, we're back and better than ever. A new web interface for the start of the basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus from basketball, football, baseball's postseason, the NHL, and right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts, and don't forget to use the promo code LOCKEDON. Reminder, you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter, using the hashtag AskLHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. A big day for Miami Heat fans, Wes. The launch of the City Edition jerseys across the NBA. The theme was Mashup. And as explained to me in a meeting on Friday with Michael McCullough, the executive vice president of and chief marketing officer for the team, they explained how there was just supposed to be an amalgamation of all the key moments in franchise history, and then the Heat creative team interpreting them into a very unique way. Just quick thoughts. What did you think about the mashup
Right.
jerseys?
Fine, like cool. I'm sort of withholding judgment until I see them in person. We're gonna see them in person for the first time November 4th against Boston at
Yep.
home. And so that's very exciting. But it's one of those jerseys where, okay, I'm seeing the pictures, you see the model images and stuff with Jimmy and Bam and all that. I gotta see them in person because the one interesting thing that's about it is that all of these players can pick different style numbers, which is really
Yep.
cool, like as a concept, right? Like you could pick anything from those classic old like throwback Miami Heat numbers. You could pick like the blackout numbers. You could pick the Miami Vice numbers. I love that they included the Floridian numbers. You know how
Oh
fond I
yeah.
am of those jerseys. Like you are able to include a Floridian number in there, the championship gold from last year, all that stuff. Very, very cool. But what that like I'm a little concerned that I could look a little bit like alphabet soup out there on
Oh,
on the
the one
court.
that Heat Twitter is so fond of using is the ransom note letters. That's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
I don't know. This was a fun story about the ability to pick your own numbers and everything else like that. McCullough mentioned to us that like one player was even on the phone with his wife, like holding a camera, kind of saying like FaceTime with her, and was like, "Oh, what do you think of these two numbers?"
Right.
And then she would offer opinion, and they would kind of smile and laugh about it. The players really got into it, and I think that's part of the fun
Okay.
here is that the
Yeah.
fans can do the same thing. They can create their own versions online, and then I wrote in a piece for Forbes how there's going to be an in arena store called the Lab that is going to be creating these jerseys for you, and you can see it's an open air 2-story concept. As you create your jersey, it will stitch them up there, and then it will just deliver them like a conveyor belt directly to you, so that you can have your jersey picked up. Again, 7,000 plus unique combinations. That's
Right.
incredible. Like there's so many different options there. You can get your own jersey and no two will be alike. You'll never see another one like it because of the ability to customize whatever numbers you want to use.
What would your number be?
Oh, wow. I would probably go with the classic 41 in honor of Glenn Rice. I've said it before. The only jersey I actually have in my collection is 41.
Yeah, I would go with 4. It's my lucky number, it just has been. But then but that the problem with that is now I'm losing an opportunity to add another number there, right? So could I go like 04? I wonder if I could do that.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't see why not. You go
yeah.
00, right? Wasn't Josh Richardson a 00? No, he was just
Yeah, I'm
zero.
not a big fan of the 00. Pick a number, man. That's not a number. That's the absence of numbers. Is that how math works? I don't know.
Yeah,
Um, so no, I think they're cool. I didn't mean to sound negative. I think the court, by the way, is really interesting. And the one thing
hell
about the
yeah.
Heat I love, and you're talking about the Lab and all this stuff, is it's everything is so well thought out with them.
Oh yeah.
The success of the Vice campaigns, not only how cool they looked, but how they were able to become a part of the community here, right? Like,
Yep.
how many Vice license plates do you see driving on 95 now? I mean, it's incredible. A ton of people have the jerseys, wear them around. There's one guy at my gym who wears like I can't remember which player it is. I think it's Bam, a Vice jersey. It's like once a week. I'm like, all right, cool, man. Like you're definitely like a NBA player now. But it's just really interesting. And so you got to give the Heat the benefit of the doubt when it comes to all this stuff, because you compare what the Heat did. Like the Heat are like, all right, cool, we've done this, and you and I know this, talking to people in the organization, like they're years and years ahead of working on this stuff, right? Like all
Yeah.
the Vice concepts are years in the making and in planning, right? And so this one was too. I'm sure you did all the reporting on it. Again, great piece that you did for Forbes out there, but you look at that compared to a team like New Orleans, like the Pelicans,
Oh
like their
boy.
city edition was just their regular jersey, the white jersey that says New Orleans on it. And they were just like, let's just like it, and it just says NOLA, like NOLA on the front. It's like the NBA was like, all right, hey guys, tomorrow we need all of your city edition stuff, like the official concept drawings and
Just,
everything. Like, let's
just
do,
put our
and they're
name
like,
on there.
oh my God, we totally forgot about that. Just write NOLA on it really quick and send it in. Like that's New Orleans' thing, and
Yeah.
that's not been the Heat at all with all this stuff. They have as much fun with it as possible, and that's good because that's the whole point of this.
Right. No, no, absolutely. Spot on. I mean, there were a lot of them there that I think were dogs. I agree with you. I think a lot of fans are kind of a wait and see approach. I think when
Yeah.
you get there, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that the Vice jerseys clicked right away to my recollection. Maybe it was much more positive, but I think some people kind of hesitated a little bit because the
They were
color
like the
scheme
first.
was so different.
They were like the first year of the Honda Element. People were like, "Is that just a box? Like that's weird." And then eventually it just catches on, and now you see them everywhere.
Yeah, yeah, man, good point. The thing about the Heat is they do things so differently. They take such incredible pride
Yeah.
in doing things innovatively, and just whether it was COVID sniffing dogs for allowing fans back in the arenas, or just the way they've gone paperless, the way they just do all their ticket sales, the way they gather data when fans are attending their games and things of that sort. Everything they do is looking years into the future. They're always trying to be on the cusp of the latest and newest innovation, and they really believe that this is going to be a game changer. They made a significant investment. I wrote about this for the Forbes piece, but they invested somewhere close to $450,000 between the production of the numbers and the ones that they have in stock and the production of the in-house lab that they're going to have in the arena, section 112. So they're looking at making that money back and then some. They really do believe that when people see the finished product and allow them to customize their jerseys, that they're going to have another big seller. I think they'll probably wind up topping the charts in terms of overall sales yet again, because they've done it through every year for the
Well,
past, well, few seasons.
It's really well said, and it's a really great point that you make there because so many of these teams have lost so much revenue, having had fans in the arenas for a year and a half, 2 years. And you would think that all of these other organizations would see an opportunity like this and like, okay, how can we maximize our revenue opportunity here, right? Like, how can we make this a legitimate, revenue stream for us for a season? And then
Yeah.
you've got, I mean, not to keep throwing the Pelicans under the bus here, but like, what is
Do
that,
it.
dude? Like what is that? It's just terrible. And then look, you've got other like the Orlando Magic thing. Like you and I are going to talk about this on Locked On NBA in more depth, and
Yeah.
we're going to criticize a lot of these jerseys. And I think there's a lot of awesome ones out there too. But then there's the Lakers just sort of rehashing what they had
Yeah.
last year. The Phoenix Suns rehashing what you had an opportunity here to really make up some lost revenue, and that's why the Heat continue to be evaluated in the top half of the league as far as franchise evaluation and value, and some of these other teams don't. It's not just because of the city edition jerseys, obviously, but it's when you see these opportunities and then take advantage of it. Again, I don't. I'm not going to bow at the altar at every Miami Heat jersey. I hated the
Of
blackout
course not.
ones. I hated the whiteout ones. I hated
Home strong,
the
buddy.
black
Home
tie
strong.
ones. The home strong ones were. I appreciate the sentiment, but they were ugly. Uh, these, I'm still withholding judgment about whether or not I will like them.
Yeah.
But I definitely like them more than those already.
Yeah.
Like they're not the worst Heat jerseys ever, and maybe they'll rise up my ranks when I see them in person, which I'm very excited. Again, November 4th against Boston. Speaking, Celtics just rolled out like the same throwbacks they always do. Like talk about a team that doesn't like anything interesting. So yeah, excited to see this in person.
Oh, and I really like the fact that the court is outlined with
Yeah,
the yellow piping,
yeah,
to symbolize the "Get those motherfucking ropes out of here" from Ray
so
Allen
great,
back in
so great.
2013. Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible. That was a nice touch, and on the uniform as well. So a really nice touch. A couple other things like that throughout in the uniform that people will see once they go up close. 22 home games, I think, throughout the year where they will be able to see these games up close and these uniforms up close and the court as well. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. Certainly
November
not.
November 15th, right? People could start ordering them.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
November 14th, I think, is
14th. Yeah.
a special edition. So a special event where they have it's called Midnight Madness. And from that point forward, you can start ordering your jerseys and other memorabilia and gear and stuff like that. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting. Always kind of fun to see fans rally about it. And I started to see a lot of it over the course of the day, tweeting pictures and things of that sort. And of course the piece for Forbes. And it's just like everybody kind of eventually just says, you know what? They're actually pretty good. So I'm curious to see how the buzz continues to grow. I'm also a little surprised Zach Lowe didn't write anything about it, but I wonder if
Yeah,
we're
he
gonna
didn't
get a
do any of the
Miami.
jersey pieces this year. He didn't. He usually
What's
does
that?
one. He didn't do any of his jersey
No,
pieces
you're
this
right.
year. He usually does one. Maybe it'll come
Yeah.
out later, right before they're supposed to actually wear them. I don't know.
Will there be
But
a
you did a
Miami
bang up job
mashup?
on yours, so I don't know that anybody needs to write
Thank
about the
you.
Miami Heat one again.
Do you think there'll be a Miami mashup version of Bernie?
Oh yeah, I mean that's everything. I mean they have a whole merchandise thing now, like sweaters and T-shirts and stuff. Like they pull out all the stops on this. It's high risk, right? Because if the jersey sucks, then you're stuck on all this
Yeah,
merchandise that you can't sell.
right.
But again, you look. The NBA tweeted out a photo of like all of them together.
Yeah,
Like all
yeah,
30 of the city editions, and you just
yeah.
kind of go like, there's some really nice ones. Again, we're gonna talk about it on Locked On NBA. I've got some favorites that I want to discuss, but as far as just like out of the box, the Miami Heat one really stands out.
Big time. All right. Well, that does it for today's episode. You'll hear from us and see us following Tuesday's game against the Dallas Mavericks. That tips off at 7:30 over at the American Airlines Center. Wes and I will be with your recap after that game, so make sure you always make us your first listen every day. Thanks to so many of you for supporting this episode and for always supporting the Locked On Heat podcast. This is David Ramil and Wes Goldberg signing off for now.